that us sitting down today together to have this conversation about mental health, masculinity, and style will be just the bomb, okay? So before we get started, I think it's important to let Roy tell us a little bit about himself, okay? A little bit more, because I just gave you like just the outline. So Roy, over to you.
Okay, this particular question, I like to focus on just the things that get me energized and the things I'm passionate about. So in a nutshell, I'm passionate about personal development and helping men become the better version of themselves. Now, what that looks like, it could be anything, but right now I am a teacher, I am a writer, mental health advocate, as Yann said. So that's the route I'm taking now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that's exactly what the purpose of YTA Grooming and Styling is, you know, become the man you want to be, you know. And so the missions, you know, overlap, they come together, and that's why I just thought it would be such an amazing, amazing conversation to have. So without further ado, I want to dive into my first question, okay? Because we're style guys. That's how I call us, you know, style guys, you know. And so for me, it's always interesting to understand what other men think about this. So in your opinion, as a clothing enthusiast, enthusiast, the French is coming out here, what is the importance of clothes and appearance in a man's life? What importance should they have?
Okay, let me think about the question. I like to answer things personally, so it doesn't sound like I'm speaking for, you know, everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So for me, what I feel is I started out looking at my own mindset and my own confidence and how I felt within myself. And especially after I started to go to the gym and I started going to therapy, I realized that I was changing and I wanted my clothes and my appearance to match the way I actually felt. And I do think that happens. So when people feel more confident and more like themselves, they choose items of clothing that reflect that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for me, you know, that because the reason why I asked that question is because I think that this is paramount. You know, I think it's very important. I think, you know, it reflects on everything that you do in your life, the way that you achieve, the things that you do. I think, you know, the way that you look really influences the way that you go about life, you know, and especially as a man, you know, professionals, you know, and that's something that I definitely believe in and that I live by.
Quick question. This might be something for editing, but you froze just then.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't hear the full answer to your question.
Oh no, but that's fine. So my answer was that it's paramount. You know, I think that, you know, clothing and style is important because the better you look, the best you do in life. You know, that's just something that I live by myself, you know, as you can see.
Clearly.
Yes, because I've had a series of meetings this morning, and I just thought, you know what, you know, I was literally tossing between a tie and a bow tie, and I thought, okay, let's go for a bow tie today because I love bow ties because it makes me feel great, and so therefore I like to think that the meetings went really well because I felt great.
All right, I like that. So
that's how it works.
Yeah, it has like a knock-on effect, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yann, did you want me to jump into one of my questions, or?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll just take it like one, you know, sorry.
Okay, lovely. So the question I have for you is, who is your style icon or inspiration, Yann?
Well, I think for me, everyone that knows me knows a very old, you know, story that we've got there, you know, because growing up, that was the first black man, and I think for a lot of black men actually, you know, he played a massive, it was a massive inspiration. Because growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, you know, this was one of the first guys that came up, and that was on that international scale, that looked great, that was literally the poster boy for black men, you know. And so when I looked at that, I was like, wow, this is great. And he inspired me so much, and that's why I went into modeling in my early 20s. You know, that was literally the blueprint that I had. And since then, I've just really, I just love him, man. I was thinking it's just brilliant. You know, from his style, from his campaign with, you know, Ralph Lauren, you know, he's done so much stuff. He's also a fantastic entrepreneur. You know, he's got his, you know, his eyewear range. You know, he's done lots and lots of different things. You know, he's done, you know, TV shows, media, and things like that. And to me, it's a great thing. Because to me, style is not just about what you wear. It's not. It's also about your lifestyle. Okay, the things that you do. It's about you know, your career as well, your career choices. It all comes into being a style icon to me.
I like that. So what I'm hearing you say as well, it's a lot about representation. Because
Absolutely.
if you didn't see him, then perhaps, you know.
But that's it. That's it. And I think, you know, that talking to a lot of, you know, a lot of us in our community, we often talk about this, you know, lack of representation. But for me, I hung on to the representation that I saw around me, you know, and I thought, wow, if these people are in such great position and do such fantastic things, let me just join in. You know, I can do what they're doing. So it's definitely a very, very massive, important part, especially as a young guy or as a young girl growing up. It's important to see people like you that are in certain positions in society, or in the world of work, or in the fashion industry, or whichever industry that you're looking at.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So that's my style icon. But you know, it's interesting that, you know, we talk about, you know, black men, you know, just as men, and guys like us that like fashion, that like style and things like that. We're often boxed. You know, there's often, like, you know, labels and things that are attached to us. And so the label that's always been attached to me personally has been metrosexual. Okay, and I wanted to kind of, you know, get some, you know, your views on that term, and we briefly exchanged about this, you know, a few conversations ago, and you know, you have some interesting views. So, what are your views on the term metrosexual?
Okay.
Do we need that label? Do we need a label?
My short answer is no.
Okay.
I don't think we do. I looked at a few definitions for the term metrosexual, and it, paraphrasing of course, it is usually a heterosexual man who does things traditionally reserved for women or homosexual men. But when I looked at the things that were characteristics of a metrosexual, it was literally an interest in grooming, an interest in fashion. I was thinking, but isn't that just a thing that men do?
Yes, exactly.
Separate category. And I feel like it is quite patronizing, because it's saying to men who may be insecure in themselves, saying, oh, you are a real man. We don't really need a category for you, but there's a separate sect of manhood here. So I don't think it helps at all, because men are interested in clothes. They're interested in looking good. So I don't understand why that's something that's reserved for a different type of man.
That's very interesting what you mentioned. I find, you know, just when you break it down like that, I find it quite problematic, actually. You know, we just have to just label, you know, different categories of masculinity and things like that. And I think this is something that I've been fighting against for a long time, you know, because a lot of people that know me on my platform know that I'm the self-proclaimed, you know, wild card, the guy that just does anything that he wants to do. You know, I've never been afraid of, you know, breaking out of mold, breaking out of character and things like that. And so, yes, that definition, whenever people have said that to me, you know, oh, you're metrosexual, I was just, you know, I just go along with it, but it's not something that I necessarily believe that I am, because, like I said, I'm straight. I know that, you know, there's lots of other straight men that, you know, that love dressing up, that love, you know, cosmetics and things like that. And it doesn't need to have that kind of label, you know. So I think, again, that fight, you know, that fight that we have is to fight against these kind of labels that are very alienating. Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a very alienating term. So and that's the thing. That's the reason why on my end, the way that I've been able to categorize is just say that we're style guys. You know, you know, we just like style, you know, or as you've used, you know, clothing enthusiast. You know, there's a lot of different ways that we can, you know, refer to ourselves. You know, it doesn't need to use the word metrosexual, because I just don't think sexuality comes into it at all.
That's my point. It doesn't. And that's why when you use the term problematic, I think that's a perfect word to describe it. Yeah. And I don't think we need it anymore. I think we've outgrown that terminology.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and you know, on my platforms, my men's magazine, and you know, with YTA men's, you know, grooming, that was the purpose. You know, that's the reason why I rebranded, because you know, my purpose was to, you know, to challenge, you know, these kind of notions, and to also, you know, reinvent the masculinity as a whole, for me as a black man and things like that. That's the reason why I created this platform and my men's magazine, so that we didn't have to be reduced down to these stereotypical problematic terms.
Right. Can I say something else on
Yeah.
what you said?
Yeah.
I think it goes even. I think we could have a whole topic about this one word, because
Absolutely.
I think it goes so much deeper, and it goes back to this idea that men should not want to feel. And I'm going to use the word, which is usually reserved for women, but men should not want to feel sexy.
Yes.
And men should not feel the need to enhance anything. What you have is what you have, and you should deal with that.
That's it. That's it.
And any guy who wants to feel sexy, feel good, feel attractive, there's something different about him.
That guy, absolutely. Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. We are not allowed as men to feel sexy and to feel handsome and to feel sensual. You know, that's, sensuality is a big thing for me, you know, and we're not allowed to, because the moment you do that, then, oh, that's a feminine tendency, you know, and then you're automatically boxed in, you know, an array of different terms, you know, and that's something that I've fought against, because to me, that's what it is, you know, and on my platform, you know, if people browse through my timeline, it's literally me just, you know, and I don't even want to use like the term pretty boy even, because that's another term that I, you know, gets thrown at me, but you know, that's me being just being sexy, just feeling myself, you know, I'm feeling myself, you know, just kind of, that's me.
You can't do that, Yann. You're not allowed to.
Right, exactly. Allowed to. And that's why to you know, what I'm doing to some people is actually quite problematic. It is, you know, I've had people that have just kind of been like, oh, you know, like, oh, you know, yes, I've had that since I've been branded and things like that. But again, do I give? No, I don't. You know, because this whole purpose of this is, like I said, it's a coming of age for me. You know, I'm 34. I've turned 34 this year, and you know, it's the celebration of my confidence. I've always been quite confident. I always have been quite, you know, out there, you know. But I think my confidence is settled now. And so for me, opening myself up like that on social media is to say, guys, this is it. This is what confidence can look like. You can actually live out loud. You can be sexy. You can project, you know, your handsomeness. You can project all this, your sensuality, all these things that masculinity tells you that you can't do. Okay, because to me, it's crazy. I don't really, you know, I think it's absolutely crazy that we have to just restrict ourselves all the time. I don't subscribe to that. I really don't.
I'm with you. I think this ties slightly into my next question. You did mention Tyson Beckford, and you spoke about growing up. But my question to you is, if you could go back in time and tell the young Yann something, give him some advice, what piece of advice would you give him?
That's there's a lot of different things, but the one thing that I would say is, fear not, because the path has been, you know, the path has been paved. You know, the path has been decided. It's already been traced. Okay, because you know, growing up, a lot of the time, I just ask myself questions. I'd be like, but where would this take me? Where am I headed? What is, you know? And I think this is not just me; it's a lot of people. You know, where am I heading? Where is this going to lead me to, and things like that. But it's actually, like I said, at 34, looking back, I'm just kind of thinking that everything led, you know, all roads led to where I am. You know, and so I did not need to worry. You know, and so this is something new that I'm taking now forward into, you know, whatever old age I get to, where I'm just kind of like, you know, yeah, the path has been paved already. And so all the roads are going to lead to where I'm supposed to go. And you know what? There's nothing more freeing than that, because it just lifts such a burden. It really does. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy all the time and I'm going to trust the process all the time. No, because I'm human. But the greater understanding is that actually, yeah, things, progress, things get to where they get to because they've already been predetermined that way.
So fear not. I like that.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Can I return that question to you?
Yeah, sure. So what advice would I give myself? I'm thinking of going back now.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
I think it comes back to this idea of being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the advice would be identify your intention. Identify your intention. And I mean that it's an overarching thing that just impacts every aspect of my life. And it comes back to what we spoke about before this recording started, in terms of clothing, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know all of your audience, so it's probably the first time that they've seen me. And I could be in a position where I'm like, oh, okay, Yann's called me a style enthusiast. He's called me this, he's called me that, he's bigged me up. Oh my gosh, like how am I going to live up to that? I'm going to come up with a three-piece suit with a tuxedo, and I'm going to have a monocle, and I'm going to, because I want to impress people. But what is my intention? Is my intention to hustle for my worth, to show them, hey, I'm worthy of I'm worthy of having you listen to me? Or is my intention to actually be comfortable, have another conversation with a black man, and just have fun with it?
Yeah.
You see? So I think be intentional, be aware of my intention.
That yes, because that was quite powerful. I don't know if you saw my reaction at first. I was like, oh, because that's quite a powerful thing. It's like, what was the intent? What is the intent? And, I think, as a rule, I live my life being quite intentional in a lot of things that I do. But until you brought it up, I was like, oh, okay, well, let me just share it. But it's a very powerful thing. It really is. It makes all the difference. It really does. And it gives you that clarity to think forward and to actually know where and what. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, now I want to touch a little bit about mental health, okay? Because that's something that we're both very passionate about, and one of my questions that I like to ask is to other black men is, do you think that our mental health struggle are specific for black men, are specific to us only, or are they just, part of the general conversation? Because I know what I believe about that, but I think it's very interesting to hear what other people have to say.
After I answer you, I will send the question back because I am interested.
Okay.
I think on the surface, the idea is that our mental health struggles are unique. That's on the surface. That's my initial response, because coming from different places, having a certain skin tone that is associated with a history that would put us in a different position. So I understand that, especially with our cultural connections to things like over-policing and things of that nature. I remember the first time I was stopped by police, for example, was when I was 12, maybe 13, with my cousin. Wow. We were just walking down the road. We got stopped. But my mum had already prepared me for things like that. She said, you see a police officer. She told me this from such a young age. And when I talk about it, I'm like, oh, okay, that has impacted my mental health. And I think that is unique to being a black boy at the time. So she said, if you see the police, do not run because you have not done anything. I was like, oh, do you know what I'm doing? It was built into me. So when it happened, I was like, oh, okay. I was prepared for this. And I don't want to reduce the black identity or the black experience or the black male experience to dealing with police and things like that, because I think that's quite reductive. But to answer your question, I do think there are things specific to black men. To open that up, however, I think if you were to go to therapy or to just look at things and unpack them, I think they would fall into certain categories. Maybe anxiety, loneliness, or some kind of description where you could put that. And I think that's universal for all men.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit of yes and no, if that answered your question.
Yeah. I think that's very interesting. I kind of believe that. I kind of believe that yes, it is 50-50 because at the end of the day, we're men.
Right.
We're men, and I think sometimes we forget that. We forget that we're just men. And my thing is a bit controversial because I believe that and I think we spoke about it a little bit. It's like the term black. The term black that we carry as men is in itself a very heavy term to carry because of all the things that you mentioned, all the stereotypes, the discrimination, the history. It's a very heavy term to carry. And so in itself, it determines a lot of the mental health struggles that we have, that we go through. We're not even, let alone being a man, just the term being black in itself is just, yeah, to me, it's an empowering term. It is, but it's also a term of struggle, and struggle in the sense that it affects our mental health. It has all these things that are so heavy that affect our mental health. So to me, I believe that yes, it's very specific. It's very specific because even when you think about it, you think about our hair types, you think about our skin tones. Well, I know. I know, but you know what I mean. You think about our hair type, our skin tones, our nose, our lips. Like these are things that have been policed since the beginning of time. And to me, like I said at the beginning, appearance is important. It's very important. Yeah. So all these things come into play. And I think when talking to a lot of young black boys and young black girls, especially, the first thing that always comes up is always appearance related. Always.
Yeah.
That's the first struggle in the black child's life. Outside of the continent, I'd say, I'd translate and say that, it's always appearance because that's the first thing that other people pick up on, your nose, your lips, your this, that, So in itself, a young black boy will grow up first with that, and then everything else that society throws at him. So to me, yes, it's very, very specific, right down to the skin tone, like I said, in our community, colorism, massive issue, outside, size of this, size of that. Yeah. So I think that we definitely have, it's very specific, very specific.
You said a few things that have me thinking. My answer is still the same. I do feel like we have a very specific struggle. However, there are things obviously that are universal because of being a man. But when I did mention over-policing and you brought it up again, and it got me thinking actually, that a lot of this over-policing and this struggle that we have is internal, which is obviously related directly to mental health. And when you said about appearance, I was like, yes, that is so true. Because for the longest time, I had gone through my life not looking at myself through my own eyes, but through what society will see and think when they see me. So,
interesting.
So it's like when I walk into a department store, as comfortable as I am in a hoodie and jogging bottoms, I will not wear that to a department store.
Right.
Even now, because I'm aware of what somebody might think the moment they see me. When I'm walking to my apartment and there's someone in front of me, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what are they thinking? Let me cross. Do you know, it's this constant paranoia with perception. And obviously, it's not something we articulate. We're not going to say, oh, by the way, I'm crossing the road because it's something we are constantly thinking about. And that can drive you, I don't like overusing the word, but it can have a detrimental effect on your mental health. And it's a constant policing of yourself because of what you think other people are thinking.
That's very, very powerful. It is, And I find myself doing certain things like that because I think, like you mentioned, your mom conditioned that prepared you to a certain way. For me, it was the same. My parents didn't want me to wear hoodies and things like that. They didn't, because we lived in a no white area. We always have. So it was like none of this, no cornrows or anything like that. Because, at the time I had my mane and things like that and I wanted to twist or whatever. Nope, they didn't want that because they didn't want me to stand out even more. So there's a lot of things that I wanted to do as a youngster that they just wouldn't let me because they just thought, you're going to stand out more and that's just going to get you more profile and give you more struggles. And, looking back at that, I don't know how it makes me feel. I don't know. I understand as parents that this is what, this is what you do, you protect, and I understand also that in the communities that I was, yes, these things would have been picked up on and it would have made my life even more difficult. But then as a parent myself today, I have a son, he's 4, beautiful afro, he's got ginger afro, beautiful. And I purposely don't cut his hair. I don't. If I do, I cut the sides, but I leave the top. And, the journey was to allow him to love his afro hair. Because at about 2 years old, he came back and when he started going to nursery, and he was like, "Oh, mommy, I want down hair," as in like, straight hair, because obviously his mom is white, so straight hair, And I said, no. When I heard that, I was like, no, we need to tackle this. So I left the hair, and now he loves his hair. Although I know, part of me, back of my mind was thinking, if I leave the hair as an afro, it's just going to make him more of a, not an eyesore, but it's going to make him more of a target. So I thought, oh gosh, I don't know, should I not? But I was like, no, he needs to be proud of his heritage. So I left it. And he hasn't got any problems. I think people have accepted him that way. So it makes me think back to me and thinking, bro, actually, if I had been allowed to do certain things to my hair, would it have just allowed me to be accepted, or would it have just worked against me? I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I apologize, right? Because I know we have to move on, but I want to come back to that.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
It's fine.
Your son and his afro. Okay, this is, oh my gosh. Okay, so believe it or not, before I lost my hair.
I know.
I had
in the same position.
So at university, I had my hair, and I remember I was looking for work once I finished university, but I still had my afro. And I made the conscious decision to cut my afro because I believed it would make me more employable. And I did get a job following my hair being cut. Number 2, you pronounce my name, obviously, with your French pronunciation. Can you say it for me one more time?
Roi.
Right. So my full name actually is Roy Campbell.
Right.
Now, when I was looking for work around the same time with my afro, my name, obviously, on my CV was Royston Campbell. So what I did, consciously thinking of how people think when they see certain names, saying, okay, my surname already is Scottish in origin. If I shorten this part of my name, it will be French. So my name together would sound more European. I'm still proud of my name and I'm still proud of my afro, but it got to a point where my self-love seemed to be at odds with the perception of society. And the moment I did this, and the moment I changed my name, I suddenly became more employable. And it kind of stuck. And it's only when you said that I actually reminded myself, oh yeah, that actually happened to me as well. So I wonder how that will translate as your son gets older, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes, I mean, I'm very curious. I mean, I who knows? We like to think that we're in the world that is becoming more progressive. I don't know. Will they know the struggles that we knew? Well, they will always be there, but at the same intensity. I mean, that's what I mean. Right. Because our intensity was different to our parents' intensity, and so on and so on. I'd like to think that things have lessened. The intensity is lessening a little bit. The tension is kind of, lessening a little bit. Who knows? But it's so interesting, isn't it? You don't realize why you do certain things. Because, the hair thing, my thing was, I started perming my hair. I started relaxing my hair. Right. So it was, yeah. And then a lot of people, like, the other people think that people attack me on is wearing colored contact lenses. That's it. Listen, but that's a whole different story. I'm not trying to be white here. Like, sorry, I'm not trying to.
Okay, we'll probably save that for another day. I think it's so important.
Yes,
1 second. Okay, let me.
Yeah, let's save that for another. Like, assimilation and things like that. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about black men, obviously, and we are black men, but we're 2 very different black men, even though we have similarities. So my question for you, Yann, is when people talk about the brotherhood of black men, do you feel included?
No. Straight up, no. And let me explain why. It's not. I'm not trying to be critical. It's just the fact that when you analyze the term brotherhood, anyways, there's always going to be an aspect of inclusion and exclusion. Not everybody is always going to be part of the big the mothership, if you want. There's always going to be people that have more affinity to that and others who are not. And so that's what I want to start with. But when I'm trying to explain that, is that I've accepted that actually, as much as I don't feel, it's not the end of the world, because I don't necessarily. I've always been fitted in. Now, for me, it's been quite a painful experience, because I've always been targeted and been made to feel like I wasn't black enough, and I wasn't in the culture enough. I wasn't this enough. I didn't speak this enough. This is my painful part of the community, and it's something that I'm starting to talk about more now, So when I say that I don't feel part of brotherhood, it doesn't pain me that much, but I do know that I contribute to it and I connect to it in different ways. Do you see? Does that make sense? There's different ways in which I connect to the brotherhood. There's different ways in which I impact in the brotherhood without necessarily being part or feeling part of it, if that makes sense. Because my thing is as a person is that, definitions, as we said, definitions and labels and things like that, yeah, they don't stick very well with me. I come from a multicultural background. I'm West African. I'm Middle Eastern. I'm French. I've got different bloodlines that come up and make me, and so I've always been in the midst of that diversity. And so when I want to claim that, it becomes a bit difficult for people, purists, if you want, in the brotherhood, if you want to look at that and be like, well, you're not claiming your black side completely because you're claiming everything else. So there's a lot of different parameters to this that, come to make that up. That's a whole different conversation by itself. But, what I'm trying to say is that, I can see myself and I can impact and contribute, but do I feel part like that? Not necessarily, no.
Thank you for sharing, actually.
And it's not because I've put myself there. Let me just say that. It's not.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's because of a very painful history from when I was young, of, not being told I didn't fit in and things like that. That kind of pushed me on the outskirts. That makes sense.
Right. It's interesting because when you speak, I do want to elaborate, but I don't want to probe beyond what you're comfortable with sharing.
No, I mean, it's an open topic now. I mean, like I said, I've become comfortable this year talking about it, especially after the George Floyd incident, because that's when everything blew up for me anyways. And that's when I started really owning, and, I had therapy about it even, believe it or not. Okay. And that's why I'm really comfortable talking about this now, Okay. We don't have to, just because we share that black, identity or anything, we don't have to be the same people.
No.
We all have different experiences. We all have different backgrounds. And it took me years to actually come to terms with that and accept that. That, my mixed background was something, my social background was one thing, and all these things, came together to make me who I am today, and created my version of black that I need to stand by.
Okay, I'm gonna change what I was going to ask, because you mentioned that you went through therapy, you've unpacked things, and you're now creating your definition of what black means to you as Yann.
Yeah.
What do you do then when your definition and somebody else's definition don't necessarily align, even now? Like, how do you combat that?
It is what it is. I've come so far, and I think that is the history. Like I said, I came in, I felt like I was put on the side of the communities for a lot of different reasons, but that didn't stop me. I still engaged. I invested, in mental health, in my activist work, my entrepreneurship work in the community. I used to, I spoke at events and things like that to do with, mental health and race and all this. And every time I try to not be as objective as I wanted to be with the community. I wanted to just fit into the current narrative that we all share. Okay, so I've always tried to come to fit in. Always, I've always tried to fit in my own way and things like that. And so when things broke this year and the click happened, it became an aspect of, well, actually, if people don't agree with this, then it is what it is. I'm not trying to, I don't know, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to fit in anymore. I'm not. Right. It is what it is. It doesn't, my definition, if somebody doesn't agree with my definition, but it doesn't make me less of an African. It doesn't make me less of a black man. I'm not trying to convince people. No.
I see. So it's not even something you're necessarily even willing to engage in anymore.
No, I've done that. To me, I've done that. I've done that, and I just feel that we need to just accept each other and each other's differences. We're all different houses that come together to make this tabernacle, if you want. We're all different houses. We've all got different, diversities, different backgrounds, whether it's social, whether it's, and that needs to be acknowledged. It does.
Thank you for sharing
that. That's a whole other conversation. I'm actually being, invited to another podcast to talk specifically about this. So I'm kind of preparing myself mentally to do that because it's not easy. It's not going to be easy.
Thank you. Okay.
But that's a very, very interesting question. So my questions, I'm looking at the questions that I have here, and the one that I really, really want to ask you is, what do you think the man of 2020 needs? Because my kids, my magazine, my magazine is the rationale is basically this: we're coming together to rewrite, or add to the narrative of masculinity. So that's one question that I asked all the contributors first before they come on. What do you think the man today needs?
I like that question. I like that question a lot, actually. My answer would be empathy. In a word, it would be empathy. You mentioned when you are talking to people, and you said that we need to accept people. We do accept people. And I don't think we can do that without empathy. There's so many things happening now with Black Lives Matter, the death of murder of Breonna Taylor. All these things are happening, and we're seeing things from different points of view. And instead of walking into somebody's world, somebody's experience, and saying, well, I don't see it like that. From my point of view, it's like this. So I don't understand what you're saying. That is not empathetic. You're not even attempting to listen and put yourself into somebody else's shoes. And I don't think we as men, we as human beings, can actually progress and move forward unless we have empathy, instead of trying to stand up and be right and be the loudest. That doesn't work.
Absolutely. No, you're definitely right. I think it's that lack of empathy that drives all these dissensions that we see. It is, and even in our community, and I don't want to feel like I'm, attacking, but it is what I see. I do feel that we need it even more amongst ourselves. Because we're talking about healing, we're talking about, reconstructing, and we can't do that without being empathetic to each group or each other in that way. We can't. So it's absolutely paramount that as Black men, we begin to have the empathy towards each other. I want other Black men, to look at me and don't sit there and think, oh, well, here's somebody that's like, completely taking himself away from the Black brotherhood. This is somebody that doesn't think that they're Black. And I don't want that. I want somebody to have enough empathy to actually listen to what I'm saying and think, okay, where's that pain coming from? Where is this disconnect coming from? How can we heal that disconnect? That's it. And, that's exactly what you're saying when you're talking about that kind of empathy, So I hope and pray that, people can have that, Black men or just men in general can start developing that empathy.
Oh, I hope so. I think it's begun, but I really do hope it continues.
Sure. No, I definitely think that manhood, whether it's Black or white or Asian or whatever, is starting to take you know, we're starting to see the effect with our generation, you know, the millennial generation, you know, because I don't know if you know this, like we are like 33, 34, we're like at the cusp. We're like the last of that generation, if that makes sense. We're part of that generation. Interesting, actually. Let me just throw this question in there. Do you feel like a millennial? Do you identify?
I need to double check the definition of the term millennial, but I do feel like I have my parents' wisdom and their expertise, but then I also am able to interact with people from a younger generation who grew up with the internet. So I do feel like I am in the middle most of the time.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same as well. Like, you know, I'm supposed to be a millennial, but I feel just a little bit over the threshold. Because I see life a bit, you know, life with that wisdom, yes. I think we've inherited, you're right, actually, we've inherited the wisdom of our fathers and mothers, absolutely, you know, and that's a beautiful thing to me, you know, it is. I wouldn't have it any other way, I wouldn't.
I think it's powerful. A slight change to...
Yes. So give me one last question, a question that you think, you know, that you have, because you have so many great ones.
I think to bring it full circle, well, not full circle, but about fashion and stuff. The statement, black men are scared of fashion. What do you have to say about that? He's laughing.
I don't know. It's difficult. If you asked me that question maybe 10 years ago, I would have completely agreed. I'd have said, yeah, absolutely. You know, this wasn't just not, it was not, yeah, you know, and I'm not saying that black men are not fashionable, but it was different type of fashion. You know, fashion has evolved, you know. We're talking about our type of fashion. We're talking about, you know, this, you know, that's what we're talking about. The old couture, the classical kind of gentleman fashion, you know. And I think that there's such a shift that has happened. If you look on Instagram, you know, and you look at all the, you know, the profile of the style guys, like I call them, like yourself. I mean, go and check Roy's profile. I mean, you know, it's like, it's clean, like it's, you know, yeah, no, I love it. You know, and there's a lot of black men now that are actually embracing that aspect of things, and I love to see that, because that, you know, being French, that's what I grew up in. I come from a family of aristocrats and things like that, and my grandparents were, you know, they were the gentlemen of, you know, the early West African, you know, emergence, you know, dressing up, you know, and I've inherited a lot of their pieces. You know, as both my granddad passed away, I literally went and cleared their wardrobes, like literally their walk-in closets or whatever. Like I cleared everything, like shoes, you know. That's it. That's where I come from. And so when I see today other black men that are doing this, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I don't think that we're scared of fashion as such. I think it's changing. I definitely think that it's changing. Even from my perspective as a cosmetics guy at the moment, which is, you know, that's what I do on my page. Yeah. I see that there's a lot of black men that are engaging. You know, there's a lot more black brands for black men that are emerging. Aaron Wallace, one of them that we're both ambassadors for, you know, but there's a lot more. And I was quite surprised. I was like, wow, there is a lot. So I think that there's a change. Like, again, black masculinity in that respect is evolving. I definitely do.
Yeah, it's a very, very concise answer. I like that. Yeah, it's changing. Agreed.
But saying that, I'm not saying that everybody is the same again. You know, there's still a lot of other guys that still need to make that work. And I'm not saying that even like scared of fashion. What I'm interested in, the shift that I'm interested in, to see the guys that are scared of fashion, not judge the guys who are. Because that's a big thing.
Though, doesn't it?
Because that's a big thing. You know, again, as we were talking at the beginning, you know, you're labeled, you're metrosexual, you're a prissy boy, you're this, you're that, you know, because you're like, oh, well, actually, that's not a manly thing to do. So let's, and that's what I'm saying. So what I want to see is for that to kind of evolve as well. Because, you know, it's 2020, guys. Like, seriously. It's 2020. Let's evolve.
Let go. Yes, I agree with that.
Let man do what man wants to do. And that goes perfectly with what my ethos is at the moment. My tagline: become the man you want to be. And that's basically, that's something that you believe in. You want men to be the best version of themselves. That's it. Becoming who you want to be, not what everybody wants you to be, not what everybody expects you to be. You know, because as we both discovered, that just ruins your mental health. It just breaks you down. You become a slave to what everybody else wants, and you just can't live happy. Yeah. And, you know, and I know so many men out there that are actually living that way. And that's what made me, you know, create this platform, for them to let go a little bit.
That's amazing. And I commend you for even creating this platform, because a lot of the time it could just stay in your mind, but you're actually creating something and creating a safe space for men to make that change and make that version of themselves and talk about it and be vulnerable.
No, absolutely. And you are too. And you are too, you know, and I think, you know, I'm really excited to see your brand grow, you know, and see where you take it, you know, because I know that I've seen that you're very conscientious about it. You know, you just you're a very thoughtful person. You just think, just like, okay, well, what do I want to target? You're very intentional. That's it. You know, you're very intentional about, yeah, that's it. You're very intentional about what you do and what you want to do with your brand. And I just really, really am excited to see what it will look like, you know, for men, and what impact that is going to have.
I appreciate it. Thank you, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, there's so much more that we could talk about, guys. There is. We didn't even cover all the questions. No, so I can smell a part 2. I don't know. I can smell a part 2, but we're going to stop. We're going to pause it for here for today. You know, it's been fantastic talking to you, Roy. You know, sharing all these different aspects, and, you know, just changing the world from the comfort of our different places, you know. So guys, I will upload this conversation as a 2-part, and you know, engage with it, and, you know, let's see where we can take the conversation. And until I sit down with Roy again and discuss some more amazing topics, take care, and we'll see you on our next video. So yes, see you later, Roy, and thank you so much.
Okay. Right, so you're gonna cut it.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so I will stop recording now.